Welcome to the life you crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Life You Crave podcast. You guys, I have such a special treat for you today. So if you know me and if you have been listening to the podcast for any length of time, I often talk about my love of Pilates. I attend Pilates 3 to 4 days a week. And I have with me today one of my all-time favorite instructors ever, Ashley Robinson. Ashley is a Pilates instructor at the Pilates company here where I live in Southern California. And Ashley chose this life after leaving her 10-year career. Check this out. This is why she's amazing. As a biochemist. Okay. And trust me, this is going to get so interesting on the episode today. She was doing biotech sales. She has a bachelor's in human biology. Again, like spoiler alert, she brings in all of her education into her Pilates classes. It is fascinating. So she has her bachelor's in human biology from UC San Diego. Go Tritons. She says, that was not me. I say go Bears all the way, just for the record, but okay. And she is a, oh my gosh, Ashley, I don't even know if I know how to pronounce this. Is it Basi, B-A-S-I graduate?
Basi. Yeah, they're very specific about it being Basi.
Okay, she's a Basi graduate Pilates instructor. She has continued her learning by joining the Basi Legacy Program, doing numerous anatomy and physical therapy related Pilates workshops. So for those of you who have any kind of like pain or suffering, Ashley is your girl. She is constantly trying to increase her knowledge and personal discipline by reading scientific papers, which again, she brings into her Pilates classes, and practicing what she preaches, which is why we love her. Other than health and Pilates, her other loves are her 2 sons, which are her absolute world. And she says, I want to age as healthy as I can to be with them as long as I can. Oh, I got chills. So welcome to the show, Ashley. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
So as I kind of alluded to, I have to be honest with you. So I take Pilates at a particular studio, the Pilates company in Temecula, and all of the instructors are amazing. I'm not just saying that. It's like, I've never been to any kind of studio where every single instructor is amazing and they're all different, which is so phenomenal. So you never get the same class twice. But of all of the amazing instructors, I had to invite Ashley on the show specifically. And here's why. I talk about Pilates all the time, not only on the podcast, but I talk about it with my clients all the time. And the number one thing that I hear my clients say to me is, especially because most, not all of my clients are over 40. And the thing that I hear the most is, I know I need to strength train, but I just don't want to, or I just don't have time, or I'm just not doing it. And then I would go to class, and I love Pilates for a lot of reasons, which I won't get into, and I would go to one of Ashley's classes. And Ashley is always making these connections to our biology, to our anatomy, to our physiology. She's making these connections between what we're actually doing in the class and how it is benefiting us, not just right now, but in the long run. And I know for so many of us, and as Ashley talked about in her bio, we so often, for those of us who have children, we're like, I want to be in the best health I can for my children. And a lot of my clients also are right now, we're starting to have to care for aging parents. And so we see parents who haven't been able to care for themselves. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is so motivating. I don't want to be in that shape when I'm 82. Like I want to be in better shape than my parents because I can see the pain and suffering. So I was like, I have to ask Ashley to come on the show so she can honestly spit some of her crazy knowledge at you all, but also hopefully entice you to, even if you don't fall in love with Pilates, I don't have some agenda that you all become Pilates fanatics, But I really hope that you fall in love with some of the information that she's going to share with us today so that it inspires you to go and get started on some kind of strength training and physical activity exercise if you aren't already. So that was a mouthful. Ashley, will you just tell us, like, how did you become a Pilates instructor? Like, how did this come about for you?
Oh, it's funny. This is a really long journey, but it started with my first leg break. So I broke my leg in a mountain biking accident. I hit it, unpacked dirt, rolled downhill, took my bike handle through my lower leg, right above my ankle. And then I, green stakes my tibia and I broke my fibula. And so it was a really bad break. And then about a year later, I fell down a staircase and just kind of tumbled face first down and rolled. And then I shattered my talus and I broke the tibia and fibula again. And then before that, actually, just something I hadn't thought about in a long time is when I was 6, on my 6th birthday, I broke my neck. I was playing on a train. I slid backwards and I hit my head and I broke one of my vertebrae, which I'm hazy on because I was a little kid, but I spent pretty much all of first grade in a neck brace.
Oh.
And so as I've gotten older, I've noticed even like little residual effects from having that issue. And so when I started playing sports in high school, I couldn't do the traditional running. I couldn't do the traditional working out. It left me in a lot of pain, especially my ankles. I could feel that I had poor form because my back would hurt. So I was trying to find something that I wouldn't be in as much pain. And I was reading an article and Madonna was talking about how she did Pilates. And at the time, this was like the early 2000s, so like 2003 would have been, because it's 20 years ago, so 2003. And so after reading that, I was like, well, she looks really good. She's older, I'll give it a shot. And so I tried yoga. It wasn't for me. Like I believe yoga is really great, but I couldn't stay focused. I wanted to wiggle more. I needed something that just took more of my attention. And I really found that in Pilates. It was low enough to impact my joints. I strengthened my core, which was my goal, was to have strong abs and a strong core for swimming because I played water polo. And then I wasn't leaving with joint pain. I wasn't leaving with back pain. And I really thought, just especially being a teenager, I shouldn't be having back pain at 15 years old, at 16 years old. So I've been doing Pilates for a very long time. I did mat Pilates for about 10 years. And then I did Cadillac and ladder barrel and chair for about another 3 years. Then I did reformer Pilates last. I was kind of a brat about the reformer, which I now love. And I've been doing reformer now for about 7 years. And I still do kind of Cadillac and chair and everything else. But yeah, it was a long time getting here. And then I was having health issues. I wasn't with my kids as much as I wanted to be in my old career. And so just based on my health, my longevity, I needed a career switch. And I felt Pilates was where I could make a positive impact in my community and in my own like personal life.
And you are, by the way, totally doing that because you are making such a positive impact. Okay, so you mentioned reformer Pilates and mat Pilates, and I'm going to ask you about that a little bit later in the episode because I want people to know how do I choose which class and what is that crazy reformer contraption. I remember walking past a reformer studio with my sister, and she was like, "That looks like torture." I'm like, "No, it's the best," So okay. I would love to hear, and I know that you could probably write a whole book on this, but for you, like, what do you think the benefits of Pilates are? Because you mentioned, like, you found Pilates after injury, and I think a lot of us do, right? Where I know that's how I came to Pilates, was I had a lot of chronic pain and injury, but I knew I needed to strengthen my core. But honestly, people say that all the time. And I'm like, I don't know how to strengthen my core, right? And so we come to Pilates, and it's such a great like post-injury for me because we go slow enough to really listen and pay attention to our bodies, but also to strengthen as we go. So what would you say are the benefits of Pilates? Like, why would you tell somebody that they should try Pilates? I know, it's like a whole book.
It really is a whole book. So just because this was the first thing that really stood out to me when you said it, and this was a study I read that I was so enthused by that. Like, I think this is a good example of why Pilates versus other exercise. So a lot of people, like the majority of my clients, majority of people I meet in the studio come to Pilates through injury. Even young individuals, they tend to become through injury. Not a lot of healthy bodies start here, even though it is a wonderful modality of exercise for healthy individuals.
Nice.
But there was a study done, and the group is small. I will be honest. The control group, the experimental group, and the experimental group, second one, were all 12 individuals. So 12, 12, and 12 for 36 total. So they had 12 students do Pilates for 6 months, 12 students do traditional ab workouts. So ab workouts, your crunches, your sit-ups, things that you would do in more CrossFit or a gym setting with like a personal trainer there. And then they had sedentary individuals for the control group. And what was really interesting was the test was how well can you engage your transverse abdominis, which is your deepest, most core muscle and allows your trunk to have stability and your spine to have stability. And in the Pilates group, 83% could engage their transverse abdominis compared to in the abdominal group that did the traditional workouts, which was only 33%. And in the sedentary group was only 25%. So it really shows that working out doesn't help you engage the deep core muscle that is going to provide that spinal stability and going to provide that core engagement that we are looking for. And Pilates really teaches you how to find that deepest core layer that on your own would be a lot harder. The other thing that was really interesting in the study was they also studied low back stability, I forgot how they say it, but basically low back and pelvis stability. And what it was really interesting was the Pilates group, 42% could stabilize their low back. And you might be like, that's low. Like, why would you be excited about 42%? Well, because absolutely zero in the ab group and zero in the sedentary group could do it. So it says to me that in 6 months of doing Pilates, 42% of people learned how to stabilize their low back, learned how to stabilize their pelvis. And that's something that's really lacking. And considering that low back issues are highly prevalent in society, I think it's at least 50% of women will experience low back issues.
Yeah.
Pregnancy pain ranges between 30% of women and 70% of women, which it bothers me. The gap is so big, but a lot of pain when we're in pregnancy. I hear low back complaints. I hear, low back just tends to be one of the number one reasons people come to Pilates. And if you look at it, that Pilates teaches you to engage that deepest core layer to support that back, you can see the benefit versus traditional exercise, that it's just simply more targeted, it's more specific, and we're teaching you how to connect to your body, which is also strengthening your brain.
Oh, yes. Here we're going to go with the brain. I'm excited about that. But before we get into the brain, I want to just a couple of things that you just said, because, for me, so I was a yoga practitioner for 25 years, right? I started when I was a sophomore in high school, 1994. But I eventually became a yoga instructor, and I had total instability. I could not engage my transverse abdominis whatsoever. And it's why I'm hypermobile. And it's why I had so many issues, is because I was compensating by using all of these other muscles, because I didn't really know how to strengthen my core. And now here's the thing that I love about what you just said, is because I can feel my muscles. I can feel the transverse abdominis that I could never feel before, even after 25 years of regular yoga practice. And in fact, what I learned was that the yoga really, I was just exacerbating my issues because I didn't know how to really stabilize my core. And that's what Pilates has totally given me. And I love that feeling of feeling those muscles that I've never been able to feel before.
Oh, that is so, I'm surprised. I'm so surprised that yoga didn't control that for you. But that, to me, that really kind of adds into why did I choose Pilates over, like, I've done Zumba, I've done rowing, I've done playing water polo, I've done swimming, I've done weightlifting, I've done personal training, I've done yoga. Like,
yes.
Why?
Yes, exactly. And you know what I love about Pilates, and I've heard people say this, but so at our studio, at the studio that Ashley teaches at, Pilates Company in Temecula, there's just 12 reformers. So it's a 12-to-1 ratio, right, with instructors. And I love that because you always get eyes on you and attention on you and feedback, right? And that is so important, right? In terms of really, I think the thing with yoga was, San Francisco, I was, going to these big, huge classes where you didn't get the feedback from instructors. There was too many people. And so I think having that individualized attention makes a huge difference in your ability to really grow.
Yes, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention here was, let's go right into the brain. So tell us, Ashley, about how Pilates, and I also want to talk about brain and longevity, because you talk about that a lot. And by the way, you guys, what you just heard Ashley sharing, the statistics and the studies, she actually shares that while she's teaching.
I shared that study today while I was teaching at 7 a.m.
There you go. Exactly. And it's like, so it's fascinating. You're like, oh, this is amazing. I'm not just here because the doctor says that this is good for me, right? Like I'm actually here because I am building core strength stability, which is going to contribute to not just right now when you're 45, 35, 45, 55, but when you are 80, you are going to be so glad that you were doing Pilates or some other kind of strength. So tell us about the brain and tell us about longevity.
Oh man, there is so much there. So, one of the things I think what would be the best part for me to start at would be if you look at diseases like Alzheimer's, and diseases related to Alzheimer's, so dementia related illnesses and neurodegenerative related illnesses. It's coming out now that the ApoE model of how the tau tangles develop and how the ApoE protein and how that causes issues with the brain, that actually isn't the mechanism of Alzheimer's. And they've determined this from, there are drugs that impede the ApoE4 protein ApoE protein. And so because it's not being impeded and they're not seeing a reverse of Alzheimer's, they know that this is not the underlying cause. Yeah. Yeah. What is being discovered conversely is that neurodegenerative diseases are metabolic diseases. So these are diseases that start in your 30s. These are diseases that start when you're fairly young. And basically, the longer that we choose to be sedentary, the longer that we choose not to work out, the less healthy our body becomes, but your brain is a part of your body. So the less healthy the brain becomes as well. What data is showing is that the number one way to reduce instances of Alzheimer's, of dementia, of neurodegenerative conditions is exercise. And it is exercising that is causing those positive benefits, whether it be weightlifting, having the muscles secreting proteins that pass through the blood-brain barrier that allow for the brain to get rehab, or simply by when we do cardiovascular effort and we cause our blood pressure to rise and our heart rate to go faster, but more blood flow going to the brain and more of that blood flow crossing the blood-brain barrier, as well as the lactate produced in cardio efforts crossing that blood-brain barrier, is really good for our brain health as well. Now, that's kind of where the limit of my knowledge is. Like, I don't understand fully how the lactate does rehab the brain, but I understand that is what the data shows. And so it is exercise that is leading to a healthy brain. It seems that moving the body is how you get your brain to be nice and healthy. So reading is important for the brain. Yes, studying is important for the brain, but it is as important that you move for your brain, because your brain is not just in your head. Like, we call the gut the little brain because I believe the concentration of neurons in your gut, I want to say, let's look it up. I want to say it's 40,000 neurons, but it is one of the largest areas of concentration of neurons in your gut. And then there are neurons going to each and every muscle. So you can't just think of your brain as the structure that lives in your head. Your brain lives in your baby toe. And if you can't move your baby toe, it's because that neuron is weak. And that means your brain is weak. So we can't think of ourselves as being this disconnected creature, like, I'm going to work my biceps separate from my booty. No, everything's connected. And so brain health is body health. Movement is healing. And it's not just me saying that's like there's data showing that mental clarity due to working out, and the studies I've read were specific to Pilates, showing quality of life improvements just because you feel better. You're not feeling as unhappy as you maybe did before. And there's lots of reasons for that as well. So exercise health is the number one way of reducing those neurodegenerative conditions, which really shows that brain-body connection and keeping that whole complex healthy.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. It's such an interesting way to think about it. And you know what I like to think about with Pilates is when I'm there is I often, especially when it's hard, and so Ashley's classes are hard. And so when we're doing something really hard and it feels really hard, I'm like, why am I here? Why did I come here? This is so hard, right? But then it's like, oh, this is so important. I always have that thought. This is so important because I'm thinking about like, this is like a deposit into like my retirement account, right? This is a deposit into my future, right? And it's a gift that I'm giving my kid because he won't have to take care of me to the extent that he would if I, was, not taking care of myself now.
Yeah. So just because I have a study that I think will help with this.
Yes.
There was a study done, and it was out of the Journal of Gerontology. It's a 10-year study. And what was really interesting about this study is it was a study involving 324 women of identical twins. So these are individuals that share DNA. So the only thing that's different in them is their environmental factors, how they're raised, what they're eating, what activities they're doing. And in this study, they controlled for a lot of different factors, like what you're eating, how active you are, things like that. And what the study parsed out was, they weren't trying to parse this out, but this is what they found. Strong legs led to a healthier brain in old age. And that leg strength had the strongest correlation to that brain health. And that was a study in identical twins, showing that the twin that had the stronger leg also in general had the stronger brain.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Right?
That is so fascinating. Yeah. Okay. And another thing that you talk about a lot too is like, one of my favorite things is like, you talk about even these little tiny things that we wouldn't think about. Like when we think about strength training, everybody's thinking about like biceps, triceps, squats, right? But you're always like you always talk about, not always, but often you've mentioned like strengthening our wrists and or strengthening your hands even, and how, talk about that a little bit.
So it's funny, you saw my eyes light up when you said grip strength. Grip strength. Little bells went off. So grip strength is the second strongest predictor of longevity. The number one is leg strength. And you can see like leg strength not only is the number one strongest predictor of longevity, it is shown to be the strongest predictor of brain health as well. Well, grip strength is an excellent proxy for how you're aging. So I can guess your age pretty readily based on what your grip strength is. And your internal age is reflected in your grip strength. So you might look young on the outside, but if your grip strength is weak, then you're not as strong as you think you are. So it's funny, as I was doing this research, it made me laugh because I was like, of course it makes sense. You need your legs, you need your hands, and those help your brain. And so grip strength is so important because if you falls attribute, and I've been incorrectly saying the number of my class, I've corrected it lately, falls account for 87% of fractures in the elderly. So if you fall, and it's a bad enough fall, that leads you to have an increase, especially like a hip break is a good example. It's about the equivalent of getting stage 4 cancer. So you can live a healthy life your whole life, have one really bad fall, and that fall will give you a 15 to 30% chance of dying in the next 12 months. Sadly, I know 2 people who have died of falls this year, and they fall in this category. They fell, they became immobile, and then because of their immobility, they lost strength, and sadly they declined. Which is another reason why I think I'm so vigorous to get this information out there, because we don't think about how, me weightlifting at 30 prevented me falling at 70 and losing my life at an earlier age when you could have lived 20 more years. So your grip strength matters because your ability to stop a fall and prevent worse fall makes all the difference in not having that fracture. And if 87% of fractures are due to falls, well, then you better be working on not falling by working on the leg strength, the grip strength, and your balance.
Right. And balance. And that comes up all the time. Yeah. Well, and Pilates, another thing I really love about it is totally all encompassing. So it's different from strength training where you're like just going to maybe do a workout, because we work on balance, we work on grip strength, we work on every single, it's super comprehensive, right? And some classes you get a total cardio workout with it. Other classes can be very, very low cardio, low impact. But so it's like, there's really something for everybody in there.
That's what I love is the versatility in the exercises. So I have like one client with rheumatoid arthritis, and she cannot, because of just the issues with the arthritis, she can't use her hands as well as other clients. Her wrists are fused together and her feet are fairly immobile. And this client gets balance, core strength, leg strength, does bridges, does a lot of these exercises really well, can even do teasers, which makes me so excited.
Wow.
And then you have clients that, like I just had a client who entered into a fitness competition. I was not her only trainer, but I'm proud to say she placed second place. She was 54 years old. She's gorgeous, 6-pack. So my point to that is that everything from, we've had amputees in the studio. We've had people with rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, all kinds of issues where it's like, we have to be more gentle with you. This is a good space for you. And we've had people as high level as NFL athletes, as, triathletes, moms that want to be fit in the studio that are healthy individuals, that we can offer the appropriate level of challenge and strength training. And so I love the versatility. From the broken to the boldest, Pilates can serve you.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And another thing that I love about Pilates is depending on the class, But you will, like I was telling her, I was like, the 10:30 a.m. class, Monday through Friday is like, I don't know. I mean, like it is a 50 and up class, at least. But that's what I love about it is because it's not because it's easy. It's not like it's an easy class, but it is accessible to all age groups. Like you see teenagers in there sometimes and you see women I don't know, like I know for sure I've seen women in their 70s in there for sure. Right. It's like, it's
One client is in her 80s that I can call off the top of my head. And she's this very petite, unassuming older woman. And she like, this won't mean anything to my non-Pilates friends, but she can do a single arm bicep curl on a small hand loop on a red spring. Or if you're on a graps reformer on a single spring, she can do a bicep curl. And for somebody in her age range, it's really amazing the amount of weight she's lifting and data, as well as I have a couple N of ones. So I have clients that go get DEXA scans and they tell me their results. Pilates helps with bone density. And so it's a really great way to lift weights in a fashion that's not going to exhaust the muscles, but we know that it's helping avoid sarcopenia. And we know when done right, it is also helping avoid things like osteoporosis and osteopenia, which is making your muscles smaller, making your bones smaller, and then porous bones.
Yes. And so if we haven't convinced you, now that you all have been listening, if we haven't convinced you to go try Pilates, the other thing I just want to mention here is Pilates is very challenging, but there's a level for everybody. So it's not like you're going to be in over your head, but also it's not hard, quote unquote, the way that like it's not running a marathon, right? It's accessible. That's how I like to think of it. It is accessible. So, and you can choose your level of hard, right? So if somebody's listening right now, Ashley, and they're like, okay, I think I might want to try this. And I have listeners all over the world, but so I think I might want to try this. I'm nowhere near Temecula, California, so I can't go see Ashley in Temecula or Menifee, or Ashley teaches around the area here in Southern California. But how would they go about finding a good studio?
Because I am a BASI student, I would highly recommend BASI trained instructors. And the reason for this is that there is a BASI South Korea, there is a BASI Japan, there is BASI in Switzerland, there's BASI in Russia. So it is a reputable Pilates training that is across the world. The programs are a minimum of 500 hours. And that is the basic program. Beyond that, you can take more and more. Like I'm going to be this Saturday, I'm going back to BASI. I'm doing a hip and knee biomechanics, just studying. That's it. Hip and knee biomechanics for 8 hours is all we're going to discuss. So they really care about investing in their structures. They provide a lot of great anatomical workshops. So once the learning ends at BASI, the learning doesn't end at BASI. We meet together. There's Q&As with Rael, and Rael has done Pilates. Oh, I better not say this wrong. I need to look up the years. Rael's done Pilates a long time. So he's the founder of BASI. But he's not going to let any instructor leave there not trained and not qualified. And the level of attention to detail at that studio through that organization I love. So I would say an instructor that is a balanced body trained instructor, a BASI trained instructor, a STOTT, SOTT trained instructor, or a PEAK trained instructor. These are really reputable trainings of instructors. There are other programs on the East Coast that are New York that I just don't know the names of that are also reputable. But those are the four off the top of my head. If I hear that you're a STOTT Marathon, a PEAK Pilates, a balanced body, or a BASI instructor, that tells me that you did more than a 500-hour program.
Got it. And that's what, I have to say, that is definitely what makes the difference. I've been to Pilates studios, other ones besides the Pilates company, but the quality of the instructor 100% makes a difference. So what would you say, how would you, so the instructors are, but like, how do I know if I should do mat Pilates versus reformer Pilates? What do you say to that?
Oh, you know what? It's partially you. So it's partially you, your availability, and how much investment you want to put into this monetarily, as well as physical travel, things like that. Mat Pilates is by far the most accessible. All you need is a towel, your body, a phone, a computer, whatever you're listening to this on, you can be used to stream Pilates right now. And so the benefit of mat Pilates is that there are ways to make it low impact by doing things like standing Pilates, wall Pilates. But the accessibility of mat Pilates is the benefit. Now, mat Pilates is harder on the joints and it's harder on the body. So during COVID, I could only do mat Pilates for a little bit. And I normally do reformer Pilates 6 to 7 days a week. And most of my sessions are an hour, but once to twice a week, I'll do 2-hour sessions. So really, that's one I can do pretty easily. When I do mat Pilates, I'm doing maybe 3 days a week. It's much harder on the body. You get more sore. So it is more intensive than a reformer class, but it doesn't mean the reformer class is lacking. It's just the equipment offers support in positions so that you can make it a little bit nicer or less nice. So if you're a more injured person, I really recommend the reformer because the things we can do on the reformer make exercises accessible to you. Like a good example is my boyfriend is in knee replacement surgery, and a lot of knee replacement surgeries, a lot of hip replacement surgeries come through here. Doing a squat or doing jumping exercises is not as accessible, especially when you're in the initial rehab or you've just been released from PT. Well, in a Pilates studio, we can have you doing squats by laying down, and we can use the resistance to make it heavier and lighter. So you're building up to a squat, whereas a standing squat won't work for your body. Same, we do dynamic training here as well, where we can do an exercise called jump board, and you use the springs to jump like a trampoline, but you're jumping in a horizontal fashion. You're not jumping up and down. And so you're not getting that impact directly to your joints. And it's a low impact form of jumping that allows for dynamic knee training and dynamic leg strengthening that really couldn't be garnered in a population that can't jump. A good example is myself. I've broken both my legs. I do not jump unless I have no impact because it hurts my body too much. But I miss jumping, and things like jump board bring that back to my life. And I can't have that at home. I need to drive to the studio. So the reformer Pilates is just different. There's more versatility. It's better for broken bodies because you get more support. Mat Pilates is more available, more accessible, and requires less of an upfront monetary commitment. So you can try it, get an idea if it's for you, is a good way to use Mat Pilates, or use it as your workout.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you said that because I am not a huge fan of mat Pilates and I love reformer Pilates, right? And so if my only introduction to Pilates had been mat Pilates, I might think I don't like Pilates, but you know what I mean? And so, and it could be the reverse. I know some people who don't like reformer, but they love mat. And so it's a matter of like trying it out, figuring out what's right for you. The other thing that you just touched on though, Ashley, that I just want to emphasize is the modifications that a good teacher, so this is why all of those credentials that Ashley was talking about earlier really matter, because the teachers were at the studio that I go to where Ashley teaches, including Ashley, they will give you modifications. So if you're like, this hurts, this doesn't feel good, I'm feeling a strain here, they have a modification ready for you. Just like you were saying, Ashley, you're like, we can have you do it this way or that way. And so it's very, very responsive to your body that day. And one other thing that I've noticed, at least about the Pilates company studio in Temecula, is nobody's ever like screaming in your face. The teachers are never like, come on, Tonelli, like, you know, like, and sometimes I'm like, I could probably use a little more of that, but the point is, there's no, it's not like this weird testosterone fueled environment where you think,
I hate CrossFit.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally the opposite of CrossFit.
Yeah, like if that, like my sister, she loves CrossFit. My cousins like love CrossFit. They want somebody to yell at them. They love that boot camp.
Yes.
I am that way. If you yell at me, I'll be like, why are we doing this? Tell me why, and then I'll do it. Which is why, like, I give them why, because you need to tell me why I'm planking. You need to tell me why we're moving our arms. They're like, if you're gonna make me do something really weird, like a good example of a weird exercise is stomach massage. So stomach massage is this exercise where you're in this rounded position and you're looking at your belly and you're pushing out and in, and the heels go up and down, and you're just like, what is going on here? And really, this is a back fascia stretching exercise. This is an exercise that's teaching you control of your trunk. This is an exercise that is massaging your abs from bottom to top and top to bottom. I have a lot of indigestion issues. I actually use this exercise when my gut is offering me some trouble, because I find it helps me have a bowel movement, which may be TMI, but you know what? Yep. Women have constipation issues. So that's it's a good thing to know how to unconstipate ourselves.
Yes.
Diet. And so it's a weird exercise, but it's an exercise that does what's called neural flossing. So your nerves are not like muscles. They're not like bungee cords. They're more like ropes. And they travel in these little grooves. And sometimes they can get knocked out of their groove, or they can get stuck because the muscle gets tight. Like a really good example of this is sciatica. So it's a really big nerve. It's about the size of your pinky. It can get clamped on by your piriformis muscle or by your IT band, depending on why you have sciatica or pseudosciatica. And so by doing things that allow your nerves to floss and to move properly to exert, this will allow you to not have as many nerve issues or to identify where they are. So if like you're feeling this exercise in a weird spot, it might tell me, oh, there might be a nerve entrapped near your shoulder, or oh, there might be a nerve entrapped here. So weird exercise in Pilates too, and like having reasons for why I'm doing this matters to me. Like I have to know why.
Yes. Oh, that must be why I love your classes so much, because when I was a teacher, I was a Spanish teacher, and I was Stanford trained teacher. And I had to know exactly why I was like, what am I like, if I'm teaching this, why am I teaching it? If I'm using this particular methodology to teach it, I need to know the research behind why this is effective, or else I'm like, no, I'm not just going to do it just to do it, right? Like I have to know that I'm being effective for my students. So that makes so much sense. Now, what about people who, well, I'll just add this, and then I'm going to ask you one final question. The other thing that I love about Pilates is it's only 50 minutes long, at least our classes are. And when I went to a studio in the Bay Area, it was also 50 minutes long. And there is some psychology behind having it be less than an hour. But it goes by really fast. So it doesn't feel like as much of a time commitment as some other, like I used to do Bikram yoga, and that's a 90-minute class every time. And, it's not like you have to spend all of this time doing it. You can just go, you like literally in and out in less than 60 minutes. And it's a full body, full strengthening workout.
The other thing that I will say, like, too, is not just like the classes are only 50 minutes. And that too, I feel like I used to, when I was a scientist, I worked only 5 minutes from the studio. And so I would leave on my dinner break. I'd go do class and I'd come right back to the studio. Or right back to my lab. And so it was really nice that it was so close and so fast. But the other thing I like is, the classes are fast, but we've developed a community in the studio, and I have a hard time making friends. Like you'll find out today when I give up my handles that I only have an Instagram. So I'm just not I'm not somebody that's good at making friends naturally. I tend to be an introvert. Like books are my best friend, even though I don't come off as it when I'm teaching. Yeah. But the Pilates Co has given me friends and has given me friendships. And so the one thing here too is that when you come, you don't just come to hang out by yourself. You come and you meet friends and you have people to hang out with. And it ends up going by fast because you look at your friend next to you and you're like, oh girl, that was killing me. And it's like
I just did that today. Yeah.
And the difficulty to me makes a world of difference, that like you don't just come here to work out, but you come here to make friends. You come here to find your Pilates family.
Totally. And some people are like, they only like to work out alone, and I get that. But for me, I remember learning this a long time ago that it was actually when I first started doing Pilates in San Francisco, but it was a Pilates cardio and like combo or something. Anyway, it was different. But the point is that I realized I was like, but I was so motivated to go all the time. And I remember once I was walking to the studio and there was this amazing clothing store across the street that was having like a wine and cheese and champagne party. And I saw some friends going and they're like, Leah, come with us. And I was like, no, I'm going to work out, because I loved working out so much there that I would prefer to work out than like have the champagne and like shop at this great store. But the point is that the reason I'm saying it is because I realized I was like, here's what motivates me to exercise is having other people there. So the community aspect of it, and then also good music, which we definitely have. And good instructors, right? So if I have those things, I know that if I tell myself, I'm going to like quit Pilates and I'll just do mat Pilates at home. No, I won't. Right? Like I know myself well enough to know, no, I won't. So it's like the membership, I pay monthly, the membership, it keeps me going. And for those of you who, another benefit to that is usually when you're paying a membership, you have to cancel your class within a certain number of hours, or else they're going to charge you. And I'll tell you, that is a motivator. If you're like, I just don't feel like going, you're like, yeah, but I don't want to be charged, so I better go, right? Like it's these built-in incentives that sometimes we need in order to be consistent. So, go ahead.
I said that's what kept me consistent, the cancellation fee, that if you do not go, we will charge you anyway.
Yeah.
And just chiming in, there is study that shows that when you go to a group class, effort increases, which I thought the number was ironic because we have 12 students. Your effort increases by approximately 12%. So by having somebody next to you, even if you're not competing with them in your head, you're naturally trying a little bit more effort because you see someone else next to you can do it. It's not a competition. It's more like
Right.
they're cheering you on and showing you it's possible so that you're able to push through it.
I
Brain health.
I totally believe that. I totally believe that, especially when I'm in class and like I see somebody who's easily like 2 decades older than me, like being stronger than me. I'm like, okay, come on, Leah, let's go. Like, what are you doing? You know, the other thing I was going to say to you, Ashley, when you were talking about grip strength, is I made a little vow in my head. I didn't. You do talk about grip strength, but I hadn't really thought about it before until you were talking about it just now. I was like, never again am I going to ask my husband to open a jar for me. Like, never again. I'm going to get that jar open myself if it kills me. Okay.
When somebody told, or I listened to somebody who was like, I was listening to Peter Tia, and he's the one who made that note that grip strength is the second strongest correlator to longevity. And I was like, why does my ability to open a jar have anything to do with how long I live? Like, I was immediately infuriated.
Like pissed. Yeah, totally.
Something about it though.
Well, I love this. I love this conversation so much. I hope that, I mean, you've convinced me. I swear, I hear you in my head. If I'm ever feeling lazy, I'm like, no, but this is going to make my brain stronger. It's going to make my body, this is going to be so great. So
we didn't have the breathing or like any of the other, because I go crazy on like breathing health, brain health, the health of the insulin in the brain, the health of the cerebellum, the health of your cardiovascular system. Like, there's so many dedicated benefits, and it's in all these individual things that make you up as an individual.
Yes. And there's really no downside. I mean, there's definitely a downside to doing exercise that is, going to be injurious to your body, obviously, but there's no downside to finding the movement and the strength training that is right for your one unique body. And if you need a little incentive, I encourage you, wherever you are, to go look up your local Pilates studio and try them out. But definitely, I mean, I can't agree with Ashley more. And I will make sure that this gets in the show notes. But what to look for in terms of how the instructors are trained. And not so much, I mean, Pilates is not cheap, right? But it is not cheap, but the time it is an investment, right? It is an investment in, if you think about like how much you're putting into your retirement accounts or how much you're putting into your savings or your kids' college education or whatever it is, it's like, this is way less expensive than all of that, but it is an investment in your, not just the quality of life that you have right now, but your quality of life. There was a doctor, I can never remember her name, Dr. Felice, I can never remember her last name, it starts with a G, but she's an OBGYN. But I remember her saying that your health at the age of when perimenopause starts, so basically 45 to 55, your health from the menopausal years is an indicator, is a direct predictor of your health when you are 75, 80 years old. So we are literally, figuratively, putting, this is an investment in our future and in the quality of our lives for decades to come. So, it is definitely, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like I always tell Joel, like if we're a little short on cash, Joel, my husband, if we're a little short on cash or something, I'll be like, nobody's taking Pilates from me. Like Pilates is a absolute non-negotiable in our world. He's like, well, nobody's taking my, he's got his thing. I'm like, okay, I got Pilates, you got that, we're keeping it forever. So Ashley, where can people find you? Where can people learn more? And what if somebody wants to work with you? Can they work with you if they're not in Temecula? Tell us everything.
Yeah, so I do teach privates via Zoom. If you have questions about things like what you were asking me, Leah, I'm more than happy to share data, information with anybody who reaches out to me. So you can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm at Ash, ASH_Pilates. You can also find me through our studio, which is at the.pilates.co. And so I'm featured on their Instagram a lot. And then I have my own Instagram. You can reach out to me on direct message, and I can always give you my email there if there's anything more.
Yes, that is so good. And you have to check Ashley out because, I mean, for those of you who are listening, you got to check her out just for her hair. Like, even if you just want to see her hair, she has the best hair. No offense, my sister.
What color it is.
It's always a different color. But yeah, you will love it. So go check Ashley out and and reach out. That's so great that you are willing to answer questions because I really do encourage people to reach out to Ashley and ask her questions, because as you can see, she is a wealth of knowledge. So Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Leah, so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed coming on.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.